when I first asked me to speak, he mentioned speaking on the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. And I was thinking that was 8 chapters in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I was thinking, wow, how am I going to condense like 8 chapters into 1 hour? I was thinking, wow, that's going to be quite a challenge. And then I got a message half an hour later saying that actually we would like you to speak on the glories of Sri Yamuna. And then it came to mind that I hardly know anything about Yamuna. You know, how am I going to speak for an hour on Yamuna Devi? So anyway, I very humbly accepted the challenge, and actually, I'm very grateful to Prabhu because it gave me a wonderful opportunity to dive deeper into the Shastra and mine for some gems about the glories of Yamuna. So, and also I'd like to humbly beg for the blessings of the Vaishnavas which have joined us this evening. Without the blessings of the Vaishnavas, all our endeavors for successful devotional service will be frustrated. That will inspire us all in our Krishna consciousness. Om Agena Timarandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karochi Vachalam Pangulangate Gurun Yakripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in a land, in a place far, far away from this material world, in the transcendental realm of Goloka Vrindavan, where every step is a dance, every word is a song, every grain of dust is a Chintamani stone. The flute is the Lord's constant companion, and the water tastes just like nectar. So in this transcendental realm of Goloka Vrindavan, Yamuna Devi flows. Her water populates the land of Vrindavan, the Goloka Vrindavan, and it's described that she is like a saffron necklace which adorns Shri Vrindavan Dham. Her water is the liquid form of divine love. And the Acharyas explain that the taste of Yamuna is just like grape juice mixed with sugar. So grape juice mixed with sugar and milk. When Krishna bathes in Yamuna, the musk from his body is washed off in her water. And when the gopis bathe in Yamuna, the kumkuma from their bodies is also washed off. So this, between the water of the Yamuna, the musk and the kumkum from the Krishna and the gopis, this creates a very intoxicating aroma. So the waves in Yamuna, they create such a melodious sound. In fact, it's described that it's more melodious than the hymns from the Samaveda, the printed with blue, red, and pink, and even gold lotus flowers. The shores of the Yamuna are decorated with groves of fragrant kadamba trees, and sometimes with golden champak trees as well. We find that scattered here and there are pure white beaches. But these beaches are not made of ordinary sand. They're made of diamond dust. And there are many valuable jewels lining the banks of Yamuna. In her waves, there are many fish swimming. They're jumping and diving, relishing the varying currents of Yamuna Devi's inconceivable devotion to the Lord. And it's described that sometimes these fish, they become stiff in ecstasy and they just float down the river with the current because they can't move. So within the innumerable groves, vines, trees, and bushes and creepers along the banks of the Yamuna, there are an incredible array of colorful flowers, just like the rainbow. And the scent of these flowers, it completely enchants the mind and invigorates the senses. Just like sometimes we may sprinkle some spices on a drink to flavor it. So the pollen from these flowers, it sprinkles over Yamuna to add an extra flavor to it. And we know that when Krishna plays the flute, Yamuna Devi becomes stunned in ecstasy. She becomes as still as a lake. And in her ecstasy, the water starts to bubble and move into whirlpools. When the cows drink the water from the Yamuna and eat the luscious green grass that grows on its banks, the milk that they produce, it becomes imbued with the potency of Yamuna. So when Krishna, when he eats those milk products, he is experiencing the ecstasy of Yamuna through that milk that he is eating, those milk products that he is eating. So when Yamuna, when she flowed past the unlimited boundary of Vrindavan, of Goloka Vrindavan, she looked across the land and she saw her older sister, Ganga Devi. And when she saw her sister, she offered pranams. And she said to her sister, Ganga Devi, where are you going in such a hurry? Ganga Devi, she had been assisting the Lord in his pastimes in Navadvip, where the Lord appears as in the golden form with the golden effulgence of Sri Radhika, and where the Lord constantly chants his own holy names in Sankirtan. So, yes, Yamuna addresses Ganga Devi. So, where are you going? You look like you're on a mission. And Ganga Devi says, yes, I have been instructed. I've been instructed by my Lord to join you in going to the material world. I've been ordered to participate in the pastimes, to deliver conditioned souls. My Lord has an unquenchable thirst to deliver conditioned souls from the repetition of birth and death and reinstate them in their original constitutional position in Goloka Vrindavan. And therefore, my Lord has instructed me to accompany you to the material world. So at that point, Yamuna and Ganga, they combined into one river. And it's described that they became like a entwined braid of a golden and silver necklace. And in that one, they traveled, giving pleasure to the residents of the spiritual world, giving pleasure to the residents of Vaikuntha with their divine waters. And eventually they reached a covering of the material world. And it is there that they stopped. And they were looking into this dense darkness. And their hearts became overwhelmed with compassion for the residents of this material world. And when they were experiencing that compassion and concern, that Vamana Deva's toenail stuck out through the covering of the material world, the covering of the material universe. And then Vamana Dev gave them a reassuring glance, and which gave them heart, and they proceeded through the hole that Vamana Dev's toe had made into the material universe. So their first port of call in this material world was Juvaloka. They went to take darshan of Dhruva Maharaj. And from there, they went to the planets of the seven sages, the Sapta Rishis. And from there, they went to the moon, to Chandraloka. They were transported from the planets of the seven sages to Chandraloka through unlimited celestial airplanes. And then from the moon, they descended to the top of Mount Meru. When they hit the peak of Mount Meru, they divided into 4 streams. And it is at this point that Ganga Devi bid farewell to Yamuna. Ganga Devi went south towards the Himalayas, and Yamuna Devi cascaded down onto the Kalinda mountain through Indraprasth to Gokul. And there, when she gets to Gokul, she slows right down to slowly proceed through the playground of Sri Krishna, eventually resting at Vishram Ghat in Mathura. This Vishram Ghat is very famous. That this is the place where Varaha Dev, after he retrieved the earth from the Garbhodaka ocean and slayed Hiranyaksha, then he went to Vishram Ghat, and this is where he rested. Vishrama means the place of rest. Vishram Ghat is also the place where Krishna went to rest after he killed Kamsa. So when Yamuna entered Goloka, she wanted to go on Parikrama and visit the various places of the Lord's pastimes. So she divided herself into many, many branches. And she went around Govardhan Hill, Varshana, Nandagram, the various forests of Vrindavan, like this. And after Parikrama, she passed through Mahavan, crossing the border of Braj, and then met Ganga Devi again at Prayag. And again, combining into one stream, these divine sisters passed through Varanasi and proceeded with great haste to Gupta Vrindavan, to Navadvip Dham. So in Navadvip, the Yamuna flows on the western bank and the Ganga flows on the eastern bank. And they very, very slowly pass through Navadvip, relishing the manifestations of great compassion which enshrines the area of Navadvip. And with great regret, they left Navadvip, and while approaching the salt water, the ocean, the rivers, they took shelter of Kapiladev's ashram. Overwhelmed by the impending separation, Yamuna Devi, she said to Ganga Devi, "Dear sister, as the embodiment of compassion, your desire to continue throughout this forsaken place to purify the bewildered conditioned souls, I take the dust of your lotus feet. Please give me permission to depart for Goloka once again." With tears in her eyes, beautiful Ganga Devi said, "O Yamuna, my beloved, when my waters are purified 100 times, then they are known as your waters. What can I say? Your fortune is unlimited, as you always embrace the body of Sri Krishna in your arms and caress his form with your hands. By the order of the Lord, I will descend to Patala Loka, but I shall long for the time when I can join you again in the service of Radha and Krishna in Goloka." So, like all things, we hear in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Aham savasya prabhavo mata sarvam paratate," that he is the source of everything, the ultimate source of everything, including Yamuna. But there is also an immediate source of Yamuna Devi, and that she is actually an expansion of Vishaka Devi. Vishaka Devi takes this liquid form as the means to provide variegated pleasure for Sri Krishna. Just as Sri Radhika is the feminine counterform of Govinda, so Vishaka Devi is her expansion. And she is imbued with independent power for the purpose of serving Radha and Krishna's loving pastimes. To enhance the landscape of Vrindavan, Vishaka's offering of love to the divine couple includes manifesting in the form of the divine river, Sri Yamuna. So now we have heard something about the descent of Yamuna Devi, their origin of Yamuna Devi. Now we can hear some lila, some pastime of what happens in and around Yamuna Devi. So many thousands of years ago, there is one great demon called Utkala. And this demon was at the estuary where the Ganga meets the sea, meets the ocean. And at that place, he had a fishing hook, and he was catching many fish. And there was one rishi there called Jajali Muni. And Jajali Muni, he warned Utkala. He said, stop doing this. This is not good. But Utkala, he ignored the sage's advice. So Utkala, he kept on catching fish. And Jajali Muni, he became very angry, and he cursed Utkala. He said, you are catching fish just like a crane. Therefore you become a crane. And immediately Utkala transformed into this huge, great crane, who we know is Bakasura. And for many thousands of years, actually, when Utkala was cursed, finally he came to his senses and realized he had done something wrong. So he begged for forgiveness from the sage and requested the sage to please relinquish him from the curse. And Jajali Muni, he said that actually, I'm not going to transform you back to where you were before, the form that you were in before. But at the end of the 28th cycle, at the end of the Dwapara Yuga of the 28th Manvantara, you will be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself. And he will give you liberation from your undesirable position. So one day, Krishna and Balaram, they were sporting by the banks of the Yamuna when they saw this huge, great heron in the Yamuna catching and eating fish. So Bakasura, he came onto the land and he attacked Krishna. And actually he gobbled Krishna up, he swallowed him. And the cowherd boys, they scattered in all directions, and they looked back and they couldn't see Krishna, and they realized that Bakasura had eaten Krishna, and they were practically lifeless. Their prananath, the Lord of their life, had just like been eaten. They were in so much distress. And the Devas, they were observing what was happening, and they understood the gravity of the situation. So actually all the Devas started attacking Bakasura. Indra came and smashed him with his thunderbolt. Brahma came and hit him on the head with his danda, struck him unconscious. Shiva brought his trident down and cut off one wing. Kuvera took his sword and cut off the other wing. Vayu struck him with his wind weapon. Yamaraj beat him with his danda. Surya pierced him with 100 arrows. Soma struck him with an ice weapon. Agni burned his feathers. Varuna tied him with ropes, and Bhadrakali smashed him with her mace. So even though Bakasura was burnt, cut, smashed, beaten, still he did not die. And Krishna, he was inside the belly of Bakasura. He did not like the place very much. It was very cramped and it was very smelly. So he decided to expand his delicate body inside Bakasura's belly. And so Bakasura was forced to spit out Krishna. And when Bakasura saw that Krishna had come out, then he started to attack Krishna with his beak to try to kill him. And Krishna very dexterously managed to dodge Bakasura's attacks. And eventually, Krishna decided to end Bakasura. So he grabbed hold of Bakasura's beak and bifurcated it, ripped it apart, just like an elephant snaps a branch, and killed Bakasura like this. So along the Yamuna, there is there is a place called Pani Gata. So one time, Radharani and the gopis, they heard that Durvasa Muni and his associates, his disciples, were residing on the far bank of the Yamuna. And so they prepared many, many preparations, sweets and savories cooked in ghee, to offer to Durvasa Muni to receive the blessings from the sage. So they prepared all these sweets and savories, and they went to the banks of the Yamuna, and there was no bridge there to get across to where the Rasa Muni was residing. There was no boat there. So the gopis were thinking, like, what can we do? We've cooked all these sweets and savories, all these prasadam, to offer to the Rasa Muni, but we can't get over to the other side of the Yamuna. So it just so happened that Krishna appeared nearby. And he said to the gopis, he said, you are all chaste wives, by the force of your purity, why don't you just ask the presiding deity of the Yamuna to give you passage to the other side? And the gopis replied that a chaste wife considers the results of her vows and austerities to be the property of her husband. That it is not fit for us to use the results of our vows and austerities for our own means. They actually belong to our husband. But the gopi said, if, however, you want to offer us the benefit of your vast austerities, then we can cross over the ocean of material existence. What's the speak of this small creek? So Krishna said, yes, I have a magnanimous heart. I will give you the benefit of my austerity so you can cross to the other side of the Yamuna. And Vishaka Devi, she said to Krishna, so tell me, Krishna, exactly by what austerity of yours will we cross over the Yamuna River? And Madhu Mangal, he butted in and he said that you will be able to cross to the other side of the Yamuna by the strength of Krishna's brahmacharya. And at this, the gopis just like burst out laughing. They couldn't control their laughter. And Krishna felt very embarrassed, that the gopis were laughing him in this way. So Vishaka then says to Krishna, she said, are you sure that the advice you give us, taking shelter of Krishna's brahmacharya, will have sufficient merit to take for the task at hand? She said, or perhaps maybe we should wait for the summer season when the water levels are lower to make our crossing more certain. And at this point, Radharani, she goes to the bank of the Ganga, of the Yamuna, excuse me. And she moves just as graceful as a swan. And she stands at ankle depth in the Yamuna. And with her right hand, she performs archaman. And just by the movements of her performing archaman, Krishna becomes completely mesmerized by her movement. So Radharani, she performs archaman and folds her palms. And she speaks to the presiding deity of Yamuna. She says, my dear Yamuna Devi, on the strength of Krishna's brahmacharya, please grant us passage to the other side of it, to the shore on the other side of you. And when Radharani prayed like this, the river Yamuna parted ways. Like this, and there was a pure soft sand path through the Yamuna. All the pebbles were cleared. There were no pebbles there, just pure soft sand for the gopis to walk on. And so they went to the other side of Yamuna. And there they presented their offering of sweets and savories to Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni was very, very pleased with their offering. And at this point, he gave Radharani the famous benediction, which we hear. He said to her, "Dear child, Raja Kumari Vishabhanu Sute, from this day hence, whatever you cook will surpass the taste of nectar and will find no equal even in the kitchens of the Devas. Whoever eats your cooking will always remain healthy, strong, and virile, and will never know defeat at the hands of his enemies. O Sundari, I give you this boon on the strength of my austerities, for my words have never been proven to be false, so let it be." And that is why Yashoda Devi only allows Srimati Radharani to cook for Krishna, because she has received this benediction from Durvasa Muni. And the gopis came back the way that they had come. The way that they had come. The Yamuna Devi parted again for the gopis, and they returned to their shore and went home. So there is another very sweet pastime where the gopis, they were traveling, or they wanted to go to Mathura to sell all their dairy products, their ghee and their butter, milk, like this. And they went to the Yamuna, and it just so happened that there was a boat at the shore. They thought, wow, how convenient this is. You know, there is a boat by the shore. And Yamuna sent Lalita to negotiate a price with the boatman to take them across the river. And when they had negotiated a reasonable price, they all loaded their products, their milk products onto the boat, and they got on the boat themselves. And then the boatman says that actually my boat will only proceed further if it receives the water which has bathed the feet of a Brajvasi. You know, and the gopis were stunned. It's like, what is this? You're telling us that your boat can speak? Your boat has desires? And so the gopis said to the boatman, so tell me, is there anyone in particular that you want to get the water from the that has bathed their feet? And both the boatman said, yes, both my boat and myself agree that it should be Radharani. We should bathe Radharani's feet. And Radharani became very shy. You know, she was shocked that someone would want to bathe her feet, you know, as a price for being able to cross the river. So anyway, the boatman, he bathed Radharani's feet and caught the water in a lota, and he sprinkled that water over his boat, over himself, and even over Yamuna Devi, like this. And then he said, okay, now we can go. So they were crossing the river, and the boatman, he said, I am feeling so fatigued. I am feeling so tired, all this hard effort. You know, there's too much weight on this boat. You know, I'm very tired. I need something to eat. You know, please give me a portion of your dairy products, you know, so I can gain some strength for this. So the gopis were like, well, you know, don't really have a choice. So they offered the boatman, you know, a portion of their dairy products. And to their amazement, when the boatman had finished eating, he laid down in the boat, in the bow of the boat, you know, belched and then fell asleep. This is in the middle of the Yamuna where the current is the strongest, you know, and the boat's just being carried downstream by Yamuna. So the gopis are like, what is this? You know, this is, you know, the boatman can't do this, can't fall asleep in the middle of a job. So Radharani said, go and wake him up. You know, she told Lalita, go and wake up this boatman. Tell him he's got to carry on working. And so Lalita went to wake up the boatman. And then she saw tucked in the boatman's dhoti was a flute. And then they understood, oh, it's Krishna. They became so happy and excited that it's Krishna. Yeah. So this is another sweet lila that happened on Yamuna. And of course, we hear from Krishna book how Nanda Maharaj, he went to bathe in Yamuna Devi at the wrong time on Dwadaji, and he was kidnapped by Varuna. Actually, no, he was kidnapped by one of Varuna's servants. And Nanda Maharaj was taken to the abode of Varuna. And Varuna was very embarrassed that his servant had stolen kidnapped the father of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, it didn't take long until Krishna appeared at the abode of Varuna. And Varuna humbly begged pardon for kidnapping. He felt responsible for his servant kidnapping Nanda Maharaj. And therefore Krishna retrieved Nanda Maharaj from the abode of Yamuna. And this. So I thought I would finish with, there was one very beautiful bhajan by Srila Rupa Goswami called the Sri Yamunashtaka. So these are 8 verses glorifying Sri Yamuna Devi. Braturanta kasya patane bipati harini prekshayati papino pipapa sindhu tarani niramaduri pirapya shesha chitta bandhani mampunatu sarvadara vinda bandhu nandani. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. She saves those who touch her from going to the realm of her brother Yamaraj, and merely seeing her exonerates even greatly sinful people from the reactions of their sins. The attractiveness of her waters captivates everyone's heart. Harivari daraya bimanti toru kandanava pundarika mandalodya andajali tandava snana kama pamarogra papa samparandini mampunati sarvada varinda bandhunandini. Yamuna Devi adorns Indra's massive Khandava forest with her enchanting current, and upon her blooming white lotuses, birds such as the wagtails always dance. Simply desiring to bathe in her crystalline waters pardons one from even the greatest of sins. May that Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Shikara Rishta Jantu Durvipaka Mardini Nanda Nanda Nantaranga Bhakti Pura Bhartini Tira Sangama Bilas Shri Mangala Nubandhini Mampunati Savadavarinda Bandhu Nandini. Sprinkling a single drop of her water upon oneself frees one from the reactions to even the most heinous crime. She increases the flow of devotion for Nandanandana, Sri Krishna, within one's heart, and benedicts anyone who simply desires to reside on her banks. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Dvipa Chakravala Drishta Sapta Sindhu Vedani, Shimukunda Nirmitoru Divya Keli Vedani, Kanti Kandali Bhir Indra Nila Vrindanan Nindini, Mampunatu Sarvadavarindu Bandhanandini. Yamuna Devi is so inconceivably powerful that although she flows through the 7 oceans which surround the earth's 7 giant islands, she never merges into them as ordinary rivers do. Being an intimate witness to Sri Krishna's wonderful pastimes, she makes those pastimes rise in the heart of those who take shelter of her. Her dark, shimmering beauty defeats even that of the precious blue sapphire. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Maturena Mandalena Charuna Bimandita Premanadha Vaishnavadva Vardhanaya Pandita Urmi Dorvilasa Padmanabha Padavandini Mampunatu Sarvada Varinda Bandhunandini. Ornamented by the supremely enchanting land of Mathura, Mandala, Yamuna Devi inspires spontaneous devotion in the hearts of the loving Vaishnavas who bathe in her waters. With her waves, which are like playful arms, she worships Sri Krishna's lotus feet. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Ramyatira Rambamana Gokadamba Bhushita Divya Gandha Bhakkadamba Pushparaji Rushita Nanda Shuna Bhakta Sangha Sangama Binandini Mampunati Sarvadara Binda Bandhu Nandini. Yamuna Devi's supremely attractive banks are further beautified by the celestial fragrance emanating from the flowers of the Kadamba trees which line them, and by the presence of mooing cows. She is especially delighted when Nandalal's devotees assemble on those banks. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Palu Paksha Malakaksha Hamsalaksha Kunjita Bhakti Vita Devasita Kinarali Pujita Tira Gandavaha Ganda Janma Bandharandini Mampunatu Savadara Vinda Bandhanandini. Hundreds of thousands of swans glide along the waters of Yamuna Devi, who is worshipable to the demigods, siddhas, kinnaras, and humans whose hearts are dedicated to the service of Sri Hari. Anyone who is touched by her gentle breezes is released from the cycle of birth and death. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Chid vilasa varipura bhura bhuva svarb apani kirtitapi durmadharu papama marmatapani Balavendra Nandanangara Garaga Banka Gandhini Mampunati Sarvadara Vinda Bandhunandani. Yamuna Devi distributes transcendental knowledge throughout the 3 worlds known as Bhura, Bhuva, and Sva. She flows through them and sings her glories. And singing her glories burns to ashes the reactions of even the greatest of sins. She has become supremely fragrant due to the sandal paste from Sri Krishna's body melting in her waters as he enjoys his water sports. May Yamuna Devi, the daughter of Surya, the sun god, always purify me. Tushta Buddhi Ashtakena Nirmalormi Cheshtatam Twamanena Banu Putri Sarvadeva Vashtitam Yasta Vita Varda Yasva Sarva Papa Mochane Bhakti Puram Asya Devi Pundarika Lochane. Hey Surya Putri Devi, O Yamune, whose forceful waves are so purifying, and who is surrounded by all the demigods, please increase the current of bhakti for the lotus-eyed Sri Krishna. He who liberates people from their sins, of that contented, intelligent person who recites this prayer, this is my supplication at your lotus feet. Shri Yamuna Devi ki jai. Maybe some of the Vaishnavas, we have 10 minutes left. Maybe some of the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis would like to share some thoughts or realizations about Yamuna Devi. No? Okay. So maybe we can finish there. Or if there's any questions or comments. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Anadimohan Das. Since you are inviting devotees to share their realization, I want to share a pastime of Lord with the Yamuna Devi. In the in the beginning of 10th chapter, 10th canto, chapter 3, when Krishna was being transported from Mathura to Gokul, at that time, Vasudevji had to pass through Yamuna. And at that time, there is a Bhagavatam commentator, Harishwari, on whose name Srila Prabhupada named one of his famous disciples. Harishwari makes two comments on that event, which I want to share for the pleasure of devotees. When Vasudevji was going through the Yamuna, because of the incessant rain by Indra, the Yamuna was showing very fearful form. And at that time, Harishwariji comments that she was showing that form because it is very hard for one to leave his actual nature. After all, she is known as Yamunuja in that verse which describes this event, that mentions Yamuna as Yamunuja. Yamunuja means sister of Yamraj. And of course, as we repeatedly heard from you, the father was Suryadev. So since Yamraj is fearful personality, so Yamuna is also trying to show her. So that's a one inference is drawn by Harishwari. And second inference is that realizing that Lord in his previous incarnation as Ramchandra got passage in Indian Ocean. So she felt it is her responsibility also that she should give way to Lord to go through. And then, as we heard, not specifically mentioned in the Bhagavatam, but it is heard that a wall was created on both sides by the water only. And then Vasudevji had to pass through. Why that? Sorry, you were saying something? That wall was created. Why was that wall created? Harishwariji comments that it was Yamuna who was trying to show her heart to her future husband. Lord will marry her later on as Kalindi. So she was showing her heart to Lord. Like, look, I'm going to be your wife. So I feel very pleasure in giving you way.
So sweet.
Yeah, these are beautiful realization. And probably some devotees who have not heard the name of Harishwari or are not familiar, we all have heard in Damodar Leela how milk is going to commit suicide, or who was committing suicide while on the stove. This kind of inference has come from the book of scripture of Harishwari only. His book's name is Bhakti Rasayanam, a part of which is being translated and published by one of very learned devotee. So hopefully that will come and devotee will relish that also. That's all I wanted to say. And I am glad to see that your health is in good shape, because last time when you appeared on this forum, you were in bad shape. And it's despite
actually my health was fine. It's just my throat was dry and it caused me to cough.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, so it caused a bit of a scene.
Despite your not so good health, you gave a very good lecture even at that time and today also. And thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing your realizations.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Would anyone else have anything they would like to share?
We have Nitai Prabhu to give a comment. Nitai Prabhu, you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandatvana Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class on Yamuna Devi's descent and glories and wonderful pastimes. With your permission, I just have 2 or 3 things to share, please.
Yes, please.
One is there is the Padma Puran. I'll just read the translation, which also emphasizes the super excellent position of Yamuna Devi. Just as how you mentioned earlier that Ganga Devi comments that she 100 times actually her sister Yamuna Devi. So on the same context, Padma Puran states, and I quote, "I offer obeisances time and again unto the beloved of Krishna, Sri Yamuna, whose lotus feet are always served by Ganga, Godavari, Narmada, Sindhu, and other tirthas. Sri Yamuna is glorious, as it is she who bestows service that is saturated with rasa to Sri Radha Krishna, Yugala in Goloka Vrindavan. In her nectar-filled waters, Sri Radha Mukund remain immersed in an ocean of happiness." End quote. So that's one of the verses from Padma Puran. And also you mentioned and explained so nicely how as Ganga and Yamuna combined, they approach Navadip, they sort of branch, and on the west side is and the east side is Ganga. That actually reminds me of Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, wherein just after accepting sannyas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent a few days in Navadip and wanted to go to Vrindavan. And then Nityananda Prabhu actually tricks him and guides him on the bank of Ganga, but saying that it's Yamuna. And at that point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually glorifies Ganga, thinking of it as Yamuna. So I'll just read that translation, a glorification of Yamuna by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes,
He
please.
says, quote, "O river Yamuna, you are the blissful spiritual water that gives love to the son of Nanda Maharaj. You are the same as the water of the spiritual world, for you can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions incurred in this life. You are the creator of all auspicious things for the world. O daughter of the sun god, kindly purify us by your pious activities." End quote. And this is from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So that establishes the potency of Sri Yamuna Devi,
Yes.
as you so nicely brought out. I recollect one pastime relating to Yamuna Devi, please. So it so happens, a couple of days ago, we heard the class, Parikrama class, Padma Devi Dasi, where she took us to Varshana, and we heard about the Man Mandir there. And Man Mandir is basically the place where Srimati Radharani approaches when she goes into the mood of transcendental anger, just to give pleasure to Krishna, so that Krishna will come and pacify her. Happens in the Man Mandir. So this pastime goes that once upon a time, Srimati Radharani was sitting with Krishna, and Krishna said to Srimati Radharani, "Radharani, you are, most of the time you go into man, you develop that anger, that sultry mood, and I have to always pacify you, cajole you, and pacify you. What do you think if I develop man once? Do you think you would be able to pacify me?" Radharani said, "That's easy. That's no problem." Then Krishna said, "Would you like to accept a challenge?" Radharani said, yeah, no problem. So Krishna this time develops man for a change. And Srimati Radharani tries and tries and tries, but no hope. Krishna is not pacified. Then she brings in her primary to try and pacify Krishna on her behalf. Still no joy. Then she brings 16,000 gopis that she's got. Still no joy. Now she's in great anxiety. She's a little worried now. How do I bring Krishna? I thought my man was, the greatest, and now Krishna's man is no sign of coming down. And she gets worried. So at this point, Yamuna Devi approaches Srimati Radharani and says, can I please try? Is that okay? And she said, yeah, no problem, please. So on Srimati Radharani's behalf, with her blessings, Yamuna Devi approaches Sri Krishna, and she does, she bows down and surrenders at the lotus feet of Krishna. She doesn't speak a word. She just surrenders and pays obedience. Please pacify yourself by your own will. Your own will. And Krishna immediately gets pacified out. So in this way, Yamuna Devi actually saved Srimati Radharani's face. So Radharani benedicts at this point Yamuna Devi, saying, from now on, I will assume a position in my Vigraha, keeping my right hand like this. That is giving anugraham, giving the mercy to Yamuna Devi in recipient for her service. So that's why you see some of the deities, like even our own Srimati Radharani's right hand is like this. And also Radha Landanishwar, Radha Parisishwar, if you see, her right hand is like this, benedicting Yamuna Devi. And she also says, on my left hand, I always hold the lotus flower that grows in your waters. As you mentioned, the red, pink, blue, and the golden. I'll always have your lotus flower in my hand. Reciprocate for your service that you've done for me. So this is one of the pastimes that sort of I recollected hearing a while ago.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, should we finish there?
Krishna, anybody got any more comments or first time to remember? Maybe, Prabhu, you can tell us about the time when Lord Balaram got angry and he wanted to get Yamuna out with his plow. I'm not sure what was the background. Maybe somebody can. This was a lot of very ferocious pastime, it seems. Yamuna Devi came out and bowed down to Lord Balaram and asked for forgiveness. Anybody got any recollection of that pastime?
If I'm allowed, I can share that. Stamba, Prabhu, would you like to share, or shall I?
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Once Lord Balram decided to visit Vrindavan, and at that time he was just trying to reestablish his relationship, having earlier gone to Mathura, and then he decided to go to Vrindavan. And one day he drank some Varuni, and then he went with his girlfriends to river Yamuna to support him to that. And when he instructed Yamuna Devi to come here, we want to enjoy your water here. But since Yamuna Devi ignored Lord Balram's request, so Lord became very angry. And then he created many what is called tributaries. And then Yamuna Devi came forward and apologized, realizing that Lord Balram is the Lord himself. That is the reason I understand.
Thank you, Nadi Mahaprabhu, for this brief description of the pastime. Okay, anybody else like to comment, or would like to end here? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We also recollect one more pastime in the waters of Yamuna. As Prabhuji mentioned, Yamuna is filled with different kinds of lotuses, including the golden lotus flower. So at one point of time, when Srimati Radha Gopis and Sri Krishna were having their water sports in the Yamuna, Radharani actually went and hid amongst the golden lotuses. Now she's golden complexion. So Krishna went and he realized that Radharani is missing in the group, and he keeps searching around. and he comes towards this group of golden lotus flowers, and he actually kissed one of the golden lotus, thinking it was Srimati Radharani, and the whole gopis burst into laughter. And then Radharani comes out from the other side, Very sweet pastime. The way the acharyas explain is actually very interesting. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's a wonderful pastime. Amazing. Okay, any more comments? So, Prabhu, thank you very much on behalf of the Auckland devotees here and on this forum for giving your valuable time and sharing your realization. It's been such a wonderful pastime. You describe how Yamuna Devi originated from the transcendental world, and then how she descended, and so many, it's like expansion of Vishaka Devi, and you describe so many pastimes. So thank you very much for sharing this wonderful pastimes and the descent of Yamuna. It's just been amazing. You just immersed in this pastime, like we are actually witnessing this pastime here while sitting in our homes in Auckland. So I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity for your association, and we hope to see you more often on this forum. Thank you, Prabhu, and Pranam. Hare Krishna. Sambhava Prabhu ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktan. So next we have the program of singing Nashinga prayer. Mr. Bhakti, who is going to sing?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So it's Raghuvir Prabhu who is going to sing Nashinga prayer tonight. Raghuvir Prabhu, you there?